Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on the time you get to watch this. Welcome to my video on philosophical challenging ideas that I think everyone should know. This is a video on laws of men and the laws of human nature. I want to talk about the two different laws that operate in our reality. And the specific subject I want to address is when society tries to rewrite reality, what happens? Imagine two kinds of laws that shape human life. One kind is written by human beings. The other law simply exists. We find it here. One law can be passed by parliament. The other law cannot be passed by parliament. One law can be amended. The other law cannot be amended even by courts. The one law can be ignored. The other law cannot be ignored, because when you ignore it, it eventually reasserts itself. These are the laws of men and the laws of nature. The two categories of laws I'm talking about, one is the laws of men and the other is the laws of nature. And many of today's deepest cultural conflicts arise when human laws, policies, ideologies try to fight reality itself. When we human beings, we try to rewrite how reality is, or how to rewrite the laws of nature. First, let's look at what are the laws of men. These are the rules human beings create to organize society. They include constitution, criminal law, civil law, marriage laws, workplace rules, school policies, court judgments, and cultural expectations. They reflect human values, what human beings want and wish. They reflect political power, moral priorities, historical struggles, and social compromises. They can differ from one country to another, one geography to another, one society to another, one tribe to another, one household to another. It can also differ from time to time. They depend on enforcement. They depend on enforcement of police, courts, institutions, social pressure, or cultural enforcement. The laws of men are necessary. Without them, anxiety or society will collapse into disorder. But they are not the ultimate laws. They are human attempts to create order. They are human attempts to copy what we see in nature and try to bring it in our artificial nature called society. And because they are human, these laws of human can be foolish or wise. These laws of human can be just or unjust. They can be realistic or delusional. They can be stupid or intelligent. Then we have the laws of nature. Now I want you to consider the laws of nature. These are not just rules passed by government. They are not rules that depend on what you want. They are stable patterns that we discover in reality or in nature. They are like the gravity, biology, chemistry, thermodynamics, cause and effect, and the limits of human body, or even the conditions for reproduction. Nature, for enforcement of these laws of nature, nature does not need a police officer. Gravity does not require a court order. Biology does not wait for parliamentary approval. Natural realities operate whether we acknowledge them or not. We discover them through observation, through science, reason, and experience. That's how we discover the laws of nature. Then we try to pattern our life according to that law of nature. Philosophers have wrestled with the distinction or this distinction between the laws of nature and laws of man for centuries. Thomas Aquinas stands out as one of the big voice. Thomas spoke of different kinds of laws. He had a category of eternal law. He had a category of natural law, human law, divine law. For Aquinas, human law should not be arbitrary. It should not just be based on whims and wishes of human being. It should be grounded in reason, that's in the nature of the human being, and aligned with the moral order that's discoverable through human nature. Aquinas read, or rather considered, that whatever we come up with as a human law, it must align with the eternal law, it must align with the natural law, and ultimately it must align with the divine law. And if it did not align, then that was not a good law. And all human laws, according to Aquinas, St. Thomas Aquinas, they were supposed to be based on reason. In other words, they were supposed to be reasoned accurately, not based on our emotion, wishes, or what we want. And once they were developed well through reason, they were supposed to serve the common good, that is the society, not what an individual wants. In simple terms, human law should not fight the structure of reality. It should conform or learn from the structure of reality. But history shows that human institutions often struggle when facts challenge convenience. Human beings, when they find what they wish is being challenged by reality, they tend to try and fight. A historian, Tal Golan, explored this in his book, The Laws of Man and Laws of Nature, which studies the history of scientific expert testimony, especially in England and America. His work shows how courts gradually had to accommodate scientific expertise, but often very uneasily. They didn't like that scientific expertise was informing how they are deciding or how they are making their court decision. In court, lawyers argue for clients. Courts follow procedures. Judges apply precedent. But science seeks evidence about reality. Science does not care about precedent. It does not care about what the client wants. It does not care about the court procedures. And therefore, this creates tension. What happens when legal procedure meets scientific fact that contradicts it? What happens when courtroom wants certainty, but science can only provide an answer by probability? What happens when human rules of evidence collide with the natural evidence as collected from observation, science, reason, and judgment? What happens? Golan's study reminds us that justice suffers when the human institution distort or try to politicize reality. In other words, when the human decides they want to ignore reality or to pretend that the human laws can replace the human laws, or laws of men can replace the laws of nature, then there is a problem. The conflict between the laws of men and the laws of nature appear everywhere. Government may print too much money, but economics consequence will eventually arrive. A society may destroy forest, but floods, droughts, and soil loss eventually respond. A culture may celebrate limitless consumption, but the body, the environment, and the economy still have limits. If we eat too much, we can see it in the population. When we consume too much of our environment, we can see it in environmental degradation. And the reason is ultimately our bodies have to respect reality, that reality has limits. Reality does not negotiate forever. It can for some time be taken for granted, but ultimately it will snap back to restore order. One of today's controversial examples concerns sex and gender. Biologically, humans exist in two categories as male and female. And this category is commonly derived from who produces sperm and who produces ova. This is central in biology, even though development, anatomy, and particular medical cases may be more complex. This matters because many social institutions were built around sexed realities. Women's sports were built around the two categories. Prisons, shelters, medical research, reproductive health care, single sex spaces, all that were constructed according to the two categories. These institutions did not emerge from nowhere. They were created because male and female bodies on average differ in reproductive function and in some physical traits such as strength, size, and athletic performance. And therefore, we constructed certain social institutions based on that. We constructed the human law by observing laws of nature. But human law has increasingly tried to address gender identity, dignity, discrimination, and social inclusion in a way that tries to defy the laws of nature. This is not a small issue. Human beings deserve dignity. No person should be treated with cruelty. No person should be harassed, mocked, or denied basic human respect because of their sex. But compassion must still tell the truth about reality. We cannot run away from reality because of compassion. If human laws redefines what sex is, if human laws pursues to erase biological categories entirely, then difficult conflicts must arise. Who competes in women's sports? Who enters the women's prison? How should medical records be classified? How should shelters protect vulnerable women and girls? These are not merely semantic questions. They are institutional questions, and they cannot be solved honestly by pretending biology is irrelevant. This also connects to feminism and patriarchy. For centuries, many societies used claims about nature to justify unjust restriction on women. Women were denied education, denied political voice, denied property rights, denied leadership. These were not laws of nature. They were laws of men pretending to speak for nature. Modern feminism was right to challenge those injustices. A woman's capacity for pregnancy does not mean she lacks reason. Physical difference does not imply moral inferiority. Embodiment does not justify oppression. That is an important distinction. Nature can be misread. Biology can be abused. Human law can use nature as an excuse for domination. But there is opposite mistake. If old patriarchy sometimes exaggerated biology to justify injustice, Some modern ideologies now minimize biology to justify social theory. They treat sex differences as though they are almost entirely invented by culture, as though they are just creations of human beings. In fact, we are told those are just social constructs. They speak as if male and female are only social scripts. That too is false. Human beings are cultural creatures. We are not only, but we are not only cultural creatures. We are embodied creatures. Biological realities matter. Reproduction matters. Sex matters. And the body also matters. A wise society must avoid both errors, using nature to justify oppression and using ideology to deny nature. Both are fallacies in reasoning. Both do not respect science, they do not respect observation, and then it's not a good judgment on reality. Language can change quickly. Policies can change quickly. Social pressure can change quickly. But reality changes slowly. In fact, sometimes it does not even change. There are things that can't change. Gravity will not change. It seems also that biology will not change. So you can change legal definition, you can change institutional policies, you can change social labels, but if the new language no longer corresponds to reality, confusion follows in medicine, in sport, in law, in education, in family life, and that is a problem. Words are powerful, but words are not magic. They do not create reality simply by being repeated. Just because you can speak good English, good grammar, you have verbal intelligence, that does not change reality. Reality is fixed. The task of human law is not to dominate nature, is not to change nature, is to govern the human life wisely within nature, within the laws of nature. Human law should protect the weak, punish injustice, preserve order, recognize dignity, correct oppression, but it should also respect the laws of nature and reality. It should not, the human laws should not try to violate laws of nature, especially through arrogance. Because laws of nature, because if we ignore laws, laws will finally fight back. We can be compassionate, but when we are compassionate outside the laws of nature, then we become dangerous. The laws of men give society flexibilities. They allow reform, justice, protection, compassion, correction. But the laws of nature gives us limits. They tell us how far we can go. They remind us that the world is not infinitely malleable. The body is not infinitely redefinable. The environment is not infinitely exploitable. Human beings are not infinitely programmable. A mature civilization needs both humility and justice. Humility before what is, and justice in how we respond to what is. The deepest question is not whether human beings can write new laws. Of course, we can. The deeper question, are we or are our laws teaching us to live wisely within the laws of nature, within reality? Or are they treating us, or are they training us to fight the laws of nature? When laws of men contradict or fight the laws of nature. For some time, laws of men might seem like they're winning, but ultimately, the laws of nature will reassert itself and reasserts itself forcefully. That's the end of my video. I hope you've enjoyed another philosophical, challenging idea that I thought everyone should know.